Oh, yeah. Tom, you have to say this is Take a Cue episode 16.
This is Take a Cue, episode 16. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Take a Cue. I'm Jen Wise, 4th and 5th grade instrumental music teacher.
And I'm Erik Donough, 8th grade band and jazz band director.
We're two veteran educators with over 35 years of experience teaching music in New Jersey public schools between the two of us, and we're excited to bring teaching experiences and insights to you.
So excited. Whether you're just starting out your teaching career or you've been teaching longer than we have, this show will help you grow with new ideas and perspectives about music education and teaching.
We hope you'll be just as inspired as we are every time you listen. Before we begin, if you enjoy our podcast, please help us out by doing a few super easy things.
First, subscribe on your favorite podcast app.
Then make sure you rate the podcast and leave us a review.
It helps people find our show who haven't yet, and we really appreciate it.
If you find that you get a lot out of our episodes, we'd be grateful if you considered becoming a monthly supporter to help us grow the podcast.
You can sign up to make a secure monthly payment using the link in our show notes or on our Anchor site, anchor.fm/takeacue. That's all one word.
Also, if you have questions or comments about anything you hear in the episode, come and interact with us on social media. We are Take a Cue Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
That's right. We are Take a Cue Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yes, we are. How you doing, Erik?
Doing all right.
That's
it's kind of
good.
a crazy week here in the Donough household. How about you, Jen?
I'm doing pretty good. Things are rolling. Things are good. We're post concert, so we're just, coasting into winter break. We get a full week here in Livingston. So
oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
yeah.
Any good plans?
I'm gonna go to the NJMEA convention. So
right on.
Yep. That's a big one. So we'll be there Thursday and Friday, and that should be pretty good. And you?
We're going to be doing some birthday stuff for our eldest daughter who is turning 10 this week.
Yeah.
And, kind of continues for a week's worth of birthday things. I can't really talk about them because some of them are a surprise and I don't want anybody hearing from the background here. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's going to be great. She's going to be 10 tomorrow. Hard to believe.
That's so cool. She'll be like, Daddy, I had a dream that I'm going to get a pony for my... No, just kidding. She hears you in her sleep.
She
so
would flip.
I know. That's so
Problem
funny.
is we have no backyard or front yard.
Right.
Or really much of a yard. So
yeah,
that would make it tough. Other than that, we're just kind of hanging out. We're just, doing our thing these days. Our concert is past as well. Our show that unfortunately Tom was not able to play is now finished and in the rearview mirror. And now it's kind of just, learn, in that middle ground between winter and spring concerts.
Yep. That's where the work gets done. So
Indeed. Those seeds we planted in the fall, they're starting to germinate.
That's it. Love that word.
That was an episode back, like, I don't know. What was that episode, like 5 or something?
Ago. Yeah, it was. And you read that lovely quote. I'll tell you what, my students are germinating all over the place. They are goopy and just kidding. Upper respiratory infections at the elementary level are.
Oh, got it. I wasn't quite
kidding.
Sure.
Play on words. That's all. Play on words.
I like it.
So, but we should welcome our guest. Tom, welcome to the pod. Welcome to Take a Cue. This is Tom
from
Wise.
Upstairs. It's Tom Wise.
I love the studio, guys. This is it's really nice.
It's lovely. It's really inviting, So, oh my goodness. So, Tom is my husband and also a fantastic music educator of how many years? How many years you've been teaching now?
This is year number 13. Took 2 years off for grad school in there, which I guess we'll get to the whole life story eventually. But yeah, I'm a big fan of your podcast to the point that I married one of you. So So yeah, I'm
It was
excited
because
to
of the
be here. This
podcast,
is a
wasn't
dream.
it?
Yeah,
It was.
yeah.
I wrote fan fiction about it before, and then
Oh my
came
gosh.
true.
And here we are tonight. You're our honored guest. So, yeah, we do want a little bit of your backstory, but Tom's here tonight to talk about small schools, small programs. Tom, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into music and teaching and ended up with us in New Jersey?
Sure. Okay. So, I don't think I'm going to achieve the level of efficiency that like Brendan Hughes did in his bio. So, but we'll skip a decade or two in there. I started off teaching in Connecticut. Jen, you and I went to college together, University of Connecticut. Go Huskies! And then you got a job here in New Jersey, and I got a job in Connecticut, and we worked for a couple of years like that, and then I came down and went to grad school, and from there. I ended up in this sort of a strange situation where I had 3 years of teaching experience, and they were well spent. I taught out in Killingly, Connecticut, which is on the Rhode Island border, and it's an old mill town. And a little bit during 2008 to 2010 was a little bit like socioeconomically depressed a little bit, but the kids were great. So I taught for 3 years in Killingly, and then I decided I was going to go to grad school, SUNY Purchase, and everything was pretty successful. I felt good about it. But coming out of grad school, teaching 3 years, and then moving states, taking 2 years off, it looks pretty not good on a resume. So I didn't get a ton of calls coming out of grad school when I was going back into teaching. Looking for teaching jobs. So, you get a few, and the one that called was Mountainside, New Jersey. And they basically said, can you put the second graders on stage for a concert? Do you have any experience with musicals? And the answer was absolutely yes to both of those questions. And so 2013, I started in Mountainside, New Jersey. It's a 4 square mile town, and it is nestled between Summit and Westfield, and between Springfield and Berkeley Heights. And it has about 75 kids per grade level, and I've been there for 10 years.
Awesome. And for our listeners who may not be familiar with how New Jersey works, there are a lot of tiny, teeny, tiny little districts.
Yes.
It's not like in some states where the district is the county and everything is part of that one county district. In New Jersey, there are a lot of very tiny school districts, which can lead to some really great things and to some other, some more, what's the word? I don't want to say frustrations. What's the word?
Challenges.
Cut this out. Challenges. Yes, there you go. Thank you. It can lead to some great things and some challenges. So, so I think it's great to have Tom on because there are so many people out there who are the one person in their district or the one person in their school who kind of does everything. Mm-hmm. And Tom has some great tips and tricks to share. And I look forward to hearing about it too, because Tom, this is a part, although we've hung out before and chatted, this is not something that you and I have delved too deeply into. So I'm looking forward to today's episode.
So Tom, what is your teaching placement right now? What is your assignment day to day, week to week?
Okay. So it's, I am one of 2 people in the department. We don't have a department head or anything like that. It is a pre-K to 2 school and a 3 through 8 school. And then we send to Berkeley Heights, Governor Livingston High School for high school. So I teach 2 days a week at the pre-K through 2 school. I teach K through 2 classroom music. And then the other 3 days a week, I do a few sections of 3rd grade classroom music, and then the rest of the day is 5th through 8th grade band. Wow. And it is all over the place. It's certainly never boring.
Plus
now,
jazz
are you on
go.
Oh yes, of course. Plus jazz band and I mean, if you want to go through the whole 10 years of it, there was that period of time where, when we were in our 20s, where we were both doing the after school lessons and the after school marching band thing. And over the course of a day, I would see students in my class between the ages of 3.5 in pre-K through 18. And that would be like a typical Tuesday for me. So, you end up having to know the different, ability levels and what's age appropriate, pretty intimately throughout like a kid's entire development.
Do you find like you teach, like your personality is different based on the like ages that you're teaching?
Absolutely.
So you're just kind of going through all these versions of Mr. Wise throughout the day.
You play a character. I mean, I don't know if you ever felt like that. I know I did when I first started teaching. Like my first job was just 5th and 6th grade mostly, with a couple of 7, 8 classroom music things going on. But I still, during that time, I felt like I was just playing a character on TV. What's scary is when, after you've been doing it for a while, that character starts to become you. And so I'm kind of I'm in there right now. Like, coming home after teaching a full day and being a dad, it's like, I'm in there somewhere. I'm in the mix, but it becomes more natural and you just kind of make the switch.
So Tom, you said you have one colleague, who I know pretty well, but like, how does that work? Like what does he do in your district?
So he does all the things that I don't do. And I'm very thankful because the things that he likes to do are actually the things that, I guess at this point, I'm not very, very experienced with, but it's like, he really enjoys middle school chorus and he enjoys, teaching like 6th grade classroom music. So he does all the 4th through 8th grade classroom music. He does all of the 4th through 8th grade, chorus and stuff. And he also teaches he does all the entire drama department. Like I just have to put a band together or just press play if we're doing tracks. He directs and everything like that, which is something that honestly, that's not my wheelhouse anyway. So I'm glad he loves to do that.
I'm kind of curious when you're switching from all of these different aspects of the music program throughout the day. I don't know. Is this? I don't know if you're planning on touching on this later, Tom, but I'm kind of curious. Like, how do you set up like the logistics for the day to constantly be switching from one thing to another to another to another? Like, when I teach 8th grade band, like I know I've got lessons in the afternoon, so my lesson stuff is set up, and like that's it. But you're doing, wearing so many different hats. How do you keep yourself organized throughout the day?
So I've stolen a lot of pages from Jen's book. Jen is incredibly organized. We had a teacher that said there are 2 types of people, pilers and filers, and she's definitely the filer and I'm the piler. But, I do when I need to, I can get pretty organized and using basically things I've borrowed and stolen from friends and spouses. And so, what I do is, first of all, let's see. So I have a set part of my day. Like my Tuesdays and Thursdays for me are just K through 2, and it's whatever they give me. And sometimes that does mean bouncing back between kindergarten and 2nd grade, kindergarten, 2nd grade, 1st grade, kindergarten. Oh, we threw in a pre-K for you, whatever it is. But that's like at that school. But when it comes to the other school, I get to kind of set my schedule for the most part. So we know when the 3rd grade classroom music is going to be. It tends to be at the same time every day. We know when the 7th and 8th grade band and 6th grade band, like full rehearsals, are going to be. And then the rest of it is honestly just lessons. And that rotates through the day, as I'd imagine it does with a lot of you and a lot of our listeners. So I guess you just kind of look at your schedule at the beginning of the day, and at some point the groups well enough that you just say, oh, well, I guess these are my Monday people. These are my Tuesday people. These are my Wednesday people.
I don't think it's this way now, but like when you first started teaching there, you had like 1/4 of your room was for general music and there was a whiteboard and the things you needed there. And then you'd have your band set up facing a different way so
Yes.
that those spaces were kind of separate, and your, third graders walking in didn't go right for the timpani.
Oh man.
Yes.
Yeah. So that has changed. And that's, over time, when you spend enough time any place, your administrators kind of start listening to you, hopefully. And so we got to a point where I said, I kind of took an odd tack. I said, I'd like to be push-in. I'd like to be on a cart, because what that does is it gets the younger kids out of my classroom. Like I can teach on a budget. I am on a pretty tight budget, so I can pack my guitar on my back and throw my laptop on the top of the cart and whatever listening equipment, whatever instruments we're using. And generally that works. It's pretty low impact, but to get them out of a third of our band room several times a week is totally worth the push-in experience.
That's what I was going to ask, Jen. I'm so glad you brought that up. And that was like, the physical setup. Cause I think, I feel like on a cart is kind of like that's a pejorative almost for a lot of people.
It's stigmatized for sure. And a lot of people, it's like, that's the deal breaker. I'm like, I've tried it both ways. I prefer the cart just because, well, for a number of reasons. This isn't a classroom music podcast, but generally you can use their classroom rules and expectations and use that to reinforce your own expectations. I love that, rather than, hey, we're in this new space, we're going to go absolutely bananas. You just say, yeah, like,
and they've lost the focus when they're in the hallway coming on down, and they're rowdy because kids getting out of the classroom and walking down. I don't know. I've seen elementary kids, move through the hallway a little noisily. Yep. So yeah, no, I like that. I think that's a really good way to sort of tweak things to make them work more to your advantage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've been doing that a while now, right? At the pre-K to 2 school?
Pre-K to 2, yeah. I've been, I wasn't put on I didn't sign up to be on a cart with them. I had a room, and I was so ripped when they took my room away. But then I, got back on the cart, and I made it work for me, and I have learned to love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, if I had to do band on a cart, because I know you, Jen, have done band on a cart when you were teaching in a small school, I guess, in other times too. Band on a cart and general music on a cart are totally different animals.
Yeah. Band on a cart is brutal. It's rough. Yeah. Yeah. I have also taught in a smaller school, smaller district. Not quite as small as Mountainside. We had about around 150 in a grade. And I had between 90 and 120 in the band every year. So it was a good number of kids. I just taught band. Small school stuff. Like, there's just not a band room this year. So here you're in the cafeteria, and it was taco day, and bummer. It smelled real weird in there, and I'd be in the art room, and I'd be in the hallway. And
do you remember the one, the custodian's closet, and there was a false door in the custodian's closet that led to a different classroom?
It was
cool.
It was like a secret hideaway. So like the door was in the middle of the 4th grade hallway, which was I was only teaching 5th graders in that building at the time. But I was like smack in the middle of the 4th grade hallway, and the door said storage, right? And you walk in, and it was about about the width of a sedan, right? Was this like entryway, and there was like a broom and a mop, and it looked like a prop closet. Like that stuff wasn't used. It was just there. And then you open this next door, and there was like a small office back there. And I taught in that space for a year. And like, it was not up to code. So like the custodian like made me a wooden like radiator cover just to like cover the exposed like coils of the radiator. And it was really like a little hideout up there. The fourth grade team was not a fan. So I didn't last in there very long. But like, yeah, the space thing in a small school is definitely an issue. And you kind of have to just, make it work for you the best you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. My secrets to band on a cart are like if you can kind of find the cart that like I don't know what size it is, but it's the one that's about like waist high. You can fit like a trumpet and an alto sax on the bottom, and then the middle shelf a flute, oboe, and clarinet, and then on the top you put like a basket of like reeds and your mouthpiece puller and a pile of music, and like that's the way to do, like load it from the bottom and then put the little stuff on top. So and then put like a cute little flower on, like something happy on it so that it follows you around. So but yeah.
So while you guys are talking a little bit about some of the challenges that you've dealt with in small programs, I'm curious if you can talk about the recruitment, because when you're looking at a school where there's 500 kids in a grade, it's pretty easy to get some kids interested in band. And I'm curious what your techniques were/are for getting a lot of kids involved when there just aren't that many kids to pull from.
All right. So we should handle this question separately, because, the Jen, when she was teaching in Ringwood, had a small school, but she was mainly at a 4-5 school and then a 6-7-8 school. And she would meet the students for the first time in 5th grade. But, like meet them before that and have contact with them in a certain way. Meanwhile, I meet my future band kids when they're kindergartners. So there are two different answers to this question. So Jen, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Yeah. And I'll go first, because mine's a lot like what we talked about in our recruitment and retention episode. The fourth graders came to my concert in the spring. Then we did instrument demos, and we signed them up, in June for the following year. And after a while, we started the summer music program, and some of them were able to start in the summer, and that gave them a little connection to the program. I used to play kickball at lunchtime to get to know the kids. I sit at their lunch tables and like just get in there and get to know them and everything. But I could do that because, well, first of all, I was on a cart teaching in the cafeteria, so I had nowhere else to be. But second of all, like it was just the thing to do to get to know their faces, because I kind of had like being in just that one school, and just in 2 schools, I kind of was able to have that focus to make that happen. And I didn't have a string program, and you could definitely do chorus and band. So there was really nothing else happening within the school for me to, this was the thing. The band there was the thing to do. So, most of the kids wanted to try it. Most of the kids wanted to give a shot. So, that was kind of recruitment for me. It wasn't easy because it wasn't a large program when I got there. So, but that's kind of how we did it. A lot of the ways we talked about in our recruitment and retention episode. But I think it would have been kind of cool to know some of them as kindergartners. But I'm not sure they'd still want to stick around with me if I if I met them way back then.
But that's not true, because you did meet them. Like, they knew you when they were kindergartners. You just didn't know them.
That's true, because I brought the band to the K to 3 schools every year in the spring to do a little concert. So they did kind of know who I was in the beginning. So, but you're right, I didn't know them. So, right.
But that does make a big impression. When you were talking in your previous episode about how you remembered when the group came to your school when you were a little kid.
Totally.
And I have similar memories about that too from when I was a kid. I remember my babysitter was in the high school show choir, and she was like my first crush. And I saw they did Sir Duke, and with these like gold sequin hats on, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Yep.
So those kinds of things definitely they are imprinted on your brain for a lifetime. So kind of coming off of that, when you're in a small school, it's sort of even further underscores the emphasis that you have to put on, like, building rapport with your students and, personal relationships, because when you are you're not recruiting from like, the last day of third grade, the last day of fourth grade, whatever. You're recruiting from the day you meet them in kindergarten. And so, there are some things I do to I don't know how to say this, but like indoctrinate them into the idea of playing an instrument.
One of us.
Yeah,
one of us.
Honestly, it's I'll bring in every few weeks a mystery instrument, and it'll be on my card. It'll be a little box at the we'll start with like a clarinet or a flute or something like that, something small, and they might not even notice. And as the year wears on, you start making them more conspicuous. Oh, that thing is on your back. Oh, it's a saxophone. And that thing is shaped like a snail. Oh, it's a French horn. And they're like, oh, today I brought an instrument so big I have to leave it outside the room. And you let the administrator know that you're going to be leaving a case in the hallway just for security. Then you bring in the trombone, and that's usually a pretty big hit. Without them knowing it, they know what the instruments look like and sound like and what they're called, and they have a concept of sound. They're coming into their later elementary before they even have thought about what instrument they want to play someday. They at least know what it sounds like, and that creates kind of just a musically, culturally literate group of kids.
So do you think, I'm going to ask both of you this question because you've had experience in both kinds of, programs, larger and smaller. Do you think that in a way it's actually kind of easier to recruit kids because they've grown up knowing you from an earlier age?
So, yes, in a way, it's certainly easier to connect with them in certain ways. I would like to say that it takes care of everything, because I'd like to tell you, oh, I get 100% recruitment for every grade because they just want to spend all their time with Mr. Wise. But honestly, it's probably about where you guys are hitting too. I usually pull in about half the grade, and you do everything you can to lead them to water. My thought is that it's not for everybody, but it's worth a try. And because, I've never met a single grown up who says, man, I wish I had never done band. I wish I had never learned how to play an instrument. So,
I'm so glad I dropped out when I was
right.
in fifth grade. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you always get the opposite and when you talk to parents, oh, I played piano and I don't anymore, and I wish I did, that kind of stuff. And so you encourage them as much as you can, but at the end of the day, they're not all going to sign up for it, for whatever reason, whether it's, academic related, or they just, they have their interest somewhere else. And honestly, that's okay. They still know they'll still be out there, and like the kids who don't do it will go out there and say, I see that thing that I'm pretty sure that's a French horn. Like, you don't want to, the last thing I want is to put out students who say, oh, I've never heard, Mary Had a Little Lamb, and people who have no idea what, the difference between a flute and a clarinet. Like, if we're going to educate them, they don't have to be top level performers, or performers at all for that matter, but to know at least a little something and carry that with them is definitely worth doing.
Yeah.
I think recruitment is a little simpler. It's like, this is the thing in front of you. There's not a whole lot else going on here at our school because we're smaller, and and that's just how the building is. I think recruitment is a little bit easier. Retention is definitely more challenging, because everybody matters in a small school, and I think that we should kind of talk about that as well. Like retention for me in Livingston, it's like I have 12 flutes. If one decides, you know what, I gave it my best, I made it to the winter concert, I'm like, you know what, hon, you did really well. I get it. Like let's pick something else. Let's try something extra.
Here's a trombone.
Exactly. Here's a trombone. Yeah. Have you met the trombone? I have 4 of those, by the way, now.
Nice.
So, but in a band like where there are only 4 or 5 flutes, it's really hard to say like, you sure, like, okay, to let that person go, because then all of a sudden there's 3 in a lesson group, and now everybody really has to play, and it's like, everybody is much more important in the smaller band, and like between like what repertoire you can pick, and what the like what you can approach, and how you structure your lessons. I mean, it matters big time in the smaller school. Tom, do you feel that way?
Absolutely. So we're feeling it right now, because of the pandemic. Like there's a COVID bubble that's going through. We were not fortunate enough in my district to really have a robust band program, even like virtually, because we had the half days. They put me at the K through 2 school, every day. And I saw the value of what they were doing in terms of like limiting exposure and trying to focus on one thing when there was a time where you had to focus on one thing. We basically carried on our band through Flipgrid, basically like it was almost like correspondence. We never saw each other live, and it wasn't graded. And because of that, and also we had TJ around that time, and I was out for 12 weeks for, family leave. And I came back, and, the band was not, just a lot of kids chose not to continue. And I'm still, pretty heartbroken about it. I eventually at some point you have to like, just say that was an extraordinary situation, and we just got to build back with what we have. But I was left with a small group. The kids that stuck around were the kinds of kids who would stick around after a global pandemic, the ones who work really hard and the ones who, really want to achieve things. So I have a small, but like incredibly talented band of about 20 students in 7th and 8th grade. And we're playing flex band charts. I've tried to re-recruit some kids. I've gotten some newbies in there, but it's this core of like really, really strong players.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're able to lean on those kids, even though the group is small. Do you find yourself using a lot of flex arrangements? Is that something that you found useful? I was going to actually ask about literature and all that, but we can jump in there.
So we're usually a large enough band that we have not had to use flex arrangements. This year with that band, we are, just because, it's an odd makeup. I have like 1 flute. I have no super low winds. I have a bass clarinet, 2 trombones, and then a whole lot of middle. so the part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 really does help. And there are some nice quality charts out there. Like right now we're playing a Michael Orr's Cyclone, which is great if you have the kind of percussion, because all the percussionists stayed. Yeah. So we have plenty of percussion, and it's very percussion-y. And we were playing one of the Celtic Air and Dances. I think it's the first one from Michael Sweeney. And yeah, some really solid stuff. And then we're able to do Robert Sheldon's Tango Argentina, just because it's very clarinet and trumpet heavy anyway. And that's sort of where we have our strengths. So it's, but it's chamber music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I imagine that you both probably, having had this experience, are really well versed at looking at a piece and trying to see, or trying to fit, trying to make a concert of pieces that are going to work for your ensemble.
Oh, totally.
Yes.
Yeah. And my trick was, especially since I didn't start kids in fifth grade on like, bass clarinet or bari sax or anything. If I had 10 saxophones, 5 would get the alto part and the other 5 would get the bari part. So that like my 2 trombones wouldn't feel like completely alone. And then, if I had, 8 clarinets, I'd give 4 B flat parts and 4 bass clarinet parts out. And I'm actually doing that this year with my my band, because my flute bones, as great as they still are 6 weeks, 8 weeks behind. So I happen to have 14 clarinets. So I'm like, yeah, 7 of you, here you go. Here's the bass clarinet part. That meet the bass clarinet. Maybe it's something you want to play in middle school. So we're like, I'm still doing it now. I'm still using it with my groups, because you never know, when you're going to end up with not enough of one thing. So yeah.
And I've definitely stolen that from you in the past. Like I do that with my younger kids. If you want to play a more fleshed out arrangement, but you haven't switched them over to the larger instruments that they might eventually play, yeah, absolutely. Throw your extra, your extra 5 altos on bari sax. Why not?
One thing that I remember having a little trouble with at my first job, not quite the same size school you guys are talking about, but we ran into some issues too, was the same kids were being like drafted for everything. You had that core group of kids who were really great, really studious, really conscientious kids, and they did band and they did chorus and they did soccer and they did drama and they did, gifted and talented art and all this stuff. What are some strategies that you have found work in trying to work with kids who are just being pulled in every direction?
Well, I don't know if you could see it on the screen, but like my blood pressure was just going up as you were describing that. I was like, so
I touched on a nerve here.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. We're currently going through that. We go through it pretty much every February and March, and you can probably imagine why. With the school, we have school musical, and we have the ever present student government type of thing, and peer leaders, and then you have sports that are one season is finishing up and another season is they're doing tryouts coming up pretty soon. And so earlier in my career, I was kind of dynasty legacy minded, I suppose, where I was like, I want to have a band that could be not just good for our little town, but like as good as any band in the state, like it was, and I found that I was not having as much fun as I would have liked to have had, because I took everything really seriously. And once I started kind of loosening up and just saying, okay, it really does take a village to raise a child. You do, like, these kids, they do all these things because they want to do all these things. And why would you give them a hard time about being interested and being talented? Let them do that, and just, stop worrying about it. And eventually you find they work harder for you, and they really don't want you to be mad at them. Like, that's another thing. When there are that many grown-ups who are telling them to go in this direction, that direction. Oh, I have a test. Oh, I have a tryout. Oh, I have this. I have scouts. I have, whatever it is. They get really stressed out, these poor kids. So, anything that you can take off of their shoulders and just finally say, like, at the end of the day, like, I want you to become a better musician. It's really important to me. But I want you to be like a sane, happy person. That kind of at some point has to take precedent.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in my first job also, like, there's one dance studio in town that was like, our rehearsal is more important than your performance. And it was like, wait a minute, we are school and you are not. Like, there's a huge financial investment then with them for the parents that are on the traveling dance company team and this and that. And, and I get that. And I get that they have had kids go to Broadway and be professional dancers and, but it took a lot of like just eventually you look at a kid and you say like, okay, like you're making a choice, your family's making a choice with you. And that's it. Yes, I'm going to give you a grade. I'm still going to give you a grade, and it might reflect that you weren't at the concert. And, my principal will let me know if I have to give you another option, another assignment or something to complete. But you're making a choice, and that's kind of how we had to handle some things. That student that wants to do everything and can, like, you go, but it does get in the way sometimes. Kids get pulled in all different directions, and it's tough to lose, your best trumpet player on concert night because she's performing in the Nutcracker, or yeah. So, yeah.
So I think we kind of touched on different things. Like I was thinking kind of within school, like, oh, we're going to take you out of this rehearsal and whatnot. Missing concerts, of course, is a whole other ball game. I do find that, you had mentioned in the show notes that you shared with me, Jen, that you had like some kind of question about, retaining students and getting them to follow through for the remainder of like a school year and things like that. And honestly, maybe I'm just lucky or something like that, but in all the literature I put out at the beginning of the year, I say band is a full year commitment. I reiterate it to them in person. I reiterate it to the parents, and I have the administration behind me on that. And so if a student says it's got to be a pretty big deal if a kid doesn't continue in band through the entire year, at least the first year that they're doing it.
And like, I saw this in your notes earlier, like, and this kind of ties into kids not realizing, like their role, like how much they mean to the people around them. Right. And I saw in your notes, like, students feeling like they're a big fish in a small pond, and like, how they really measure up against, the rest of the world versus like within your program. And, I think that ties in a little bit, too, like in a smaller school, in a smaller community, you're relying on those like ultra talented kids, but they're ultra talented within the scope of like, what you're doing. Right. And like, I know I always was trying to find opportunities where I could get my kids to see like a bigger picture, like beyond what I had going on in the classroom, because, if not, it was just like us in our little bubble, and I was out there trying to find, new stuff and new experiences and everything. But their scope was pretty small,
Yeah. A fun test is, ask one of your, I don't know, second year students, who's your favorite musician on your instrument? And you'll usually either get I don't know or you.
If they say Mr. Wise, then we have a talking.
Well, that's the thing. We like, yeah. If you've been playing your instrument for any amount of time, like, you should have somebody that you enjoy listening to. You should, and just know that there's a world outside of the walls of our classroom. And that's especially difficult. Like, I feel like in Livingston, which is for people who are listening, not in New Jersey, is a fairly metropolitan community. People get out and they do things. They go see concerts and, shows and things like that. And while Mountainside is it's technically metropolitan. It's like right on Route 22. It's right near a bunch of cultural centers. Some of these kids, I feel like they just go home and they, put on their phone or their video game or whatever, and they don't know what's out there. And because I that's one place where I feel like I could improve, is show them really what's out there. But there's only so much time in the day,
Yeah. We struggled with, getting kids to take private lessons. And because if you're the best saxophone in your section, like, why would you go take lessons? Like, because, oh, I'm the best one. It's like, well, you're doing a great job, but, we want to get you here. And how many kids I sent to, junior region, high school region auditions that just really just didn't know the talent level that was happening around them, or the achievement that was happening around them. And that was tough to see when, you try and, like you said, lead the horse to water. And then it's like, they don't have a big enough picture. We did Zoom, before Zoom was Zoom, we did Skype chats with bands from like different parts of the state just to get an idea of what was going on out there. I just, I really felt like that was an important thing that I had to do for my students in a small school. So
that's a great idea. Like buddy up with another district. And yeah, what a cool idea. I'm kind of curious here. I'm noticing in our notes here, you wrote in creating a spiral curriculum. I think Tom put that in his notes.
I did.
Tom, can you talk a little bit about what that is and how one goes about starting this?
This might be a Yukon thing. They're very heavily Vygotskyan constructivist there.
Oh, okay, sure.
And so it's like, all the buzzwords, zone of proximal development and whatever. So so this idea of spiraling a curriculum is to teach a concept, but use the basis of that concept to form new and grow new concepts later on. So this idea of like, okay, saying you start in kindergarten. Oh, in kindergarten, we're going to learn hot cross buns. Maybe in first grade, we're going to learn the words to hot cross buns, and we will improvise some accompaniment to it until by the time they get to recorders, they're playing hot cross buns on recorders. And then, they're creating, by the time they get to 8th grade, they're creating themes and variations on hot cross buns. And so hot cross buns is simply a vehicle to whatever your goals are. And so what I do is I base what I teach in my younger classes around what I eventually want them to do. So it's not just like in band. So I don't just say, oh, here's a trumpet, I play trumpet, and you know what a trumpet sounds like. I'll teach them, Hey Ho Nobody Home as a round in 3rd grade. And then when they play it on page number 11 of Essential Elements for Band in 5th grade, they're like, I know this song. And I want to be like, you know why you know this song? Because I was preparing for this moment for like the last several years, but it does, the idea that the method books choose their songs partly because they're folk songs, and of course they're simple, they're readable, but they also should have like a sort of an inkling of familiarity to them, to a lot of kids. And so I was finding when I first started, there was no familiarity. None of these songs rang any bells to them. So why not start teaching them? And then it just builds on, and you end up getting some wonderful songs, folk song based things. A tisket, a tasket, we did in 2nd grade. I'm currently teaching it in 2nd grade, and I'm currently teaching it in 5th grade band at the same time. And it's like, wow. They're like, oh so man, I remember that.
You're using the instrumental curriculum to drive the general music curriculum a bit,
and vice versa
at times.
Too. And vice versa. So
cool.
Yeah. And I find that it's like, that's one of the things that autonomy can kind of give you, because, if you guys wanted to do something like this, you'd have to get multiple people on board with it and get it and like really, try to figure out exactly, we're going to teach it this way so that it'll work the best it can. And me, I can just wing it from day to day and year over year. And so I've got something that kind of works for me. So, if, for anybody who's listening, who says, what's a way, like I'm in a small district, how can I soup up my programs? How can I make life easier for myself? Teach the songs vocally years before you need to learn them on instruments, if you can.
And use solfege in your band.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
My
We
gosh.
use solfege all the time.
Oh yeah. Like I sing at them. We associate our first 5 notes with solfege and beyond. And they can pretty much solfege like half the songs I put in front of them for concert band because we just I use the solfege.
All right, so now I want to switch directions here for a little bit.
Sure.
So we've kind of talked about some of the challenges of a small program, and I think that I'm imagining listening to this as somebody who is in college or maybe just looking for their first job, and they're like, oh, I might end up in one of these districts. Talk about some of the positives of being in a district so small, because I know there are, and I just think it's important to kind of get a comprehensive look at it.
Okay, so yeah, I really didn't want to make it seem like it was negative. There of course there are tons of challenges, but the reward is pretty great. I feel like I know all of my students, and there have been times where I'm talking to a parent about one of their children, and I say so and so, it seems to me that they really have an interest in music, and they care about doing well, but maybe there's like a little bit of a a confidence issue here or there, or there's like maybe a slight need some help with tracking or something like that with when it comes to reading skills and things like that. And they're like, wow, you really know my kid. Like you hit him on the head. Well, the thing is, I have about, kindergarten, 8th grade, I have about 9 years to get to know them, and each year we get to build on that relationship. So, whereas there are plenty of people, and I guess, Eric, you're kind of in the situation. You meet the students on day 1, and on day 180, whatever it is, you pass them to the next person, and you get to watch them succeed beyond that. And there's you kind of get to live vicariously and just say, look, there they go. And so, I guess in where I am, the stakes are pretty high. Like the reward is high because you get to know them and you get to live all their successes. The stakes are also high because if you mess up, the mess sticks with you for a while. So you gotta kind of revel in the successes and in if you're the kind of person who really kind of cherishes the growth of the kid, like that's what I live for, that light bulb moment, and so you just say yeah, this is watching that happen over and over the course of 8-9 years is just it's so rewarding.
So good.
I think that was my favorite part too, because I taught 4 through 8 in my first position, and getting to see them go, start in 4th grade, and I knew by the time I sent them off to high school, pretty much everything they knew was because of something that we did in our school together, and cool. Getting to sort of see them go from that little kid to becoming a big high schooler is really cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big perk.
Yeah. It's also great if you're a control freak, because
you know their feeder.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if I ever want to make a change, I don't have to try to convince anybody to make that change.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I was going to say that. Like I definitely forget that there 3 or 4 other teachers that are doing the same job as me, like next door, and I'll just like do something and be like, oh, right, everybody should probably do it that way or not do it, and I forget. I'm so guilty of that. I here in Livingston, because I taught, for 9 years, like in a position where I could just like make it work, because I looked at the kids in front of me and said, this is what they need and this is what we will do. And I step in that hole all the time, because I had that freedom before. And it's a double-edged sword, because again, you're responsible for whatever outcome comes from it. And if you don't have that mirror looking back at you, or you don't have a music supervisor, or Tom, didn't you just get observed by your superintendent last week or something?
I did.
Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just like a regular
Like,
observation.
it went straight to the top,
Like, I mean, that's just not happening where I am. Like, and it's one of those things. If you don't have that mirror looking back at you, you don't always see it right away, right?
I want you to know, just a side note, Jen, I did get observed by our superintendent.
You did?
I want to say 5 years ago. Okay. It was one of our interim superintendents, and it was right before she was leaving.
Oh.
And she observed me, and we had a really nice conversation afterwards. So it does happen occasionally.
Okay. All right. I was observed by the assistant superintendent, but that was right before I got tenure. So
nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, that's a thing. It's just like the chain to the top is a little shorter.
Yes.
We're about like a little at it. Like we're a little over an hour here. Is there anything else like on the list? I feel like we've really gotten to a lot of your notes here.
If we were going to leave with one parting thought, the situation that I find myself in, even though it's sort of you don't get much airtime on this kind of a podcast necessarily. There are a lot of us out there that are like this. And so, if you have questions, contact Jen and Erik, or you can contact me. I'd be happy to walk you through things.
So Tom, for our listeners who might want to get in touch, what's the best way to find you?
You can find me on my school email. It is twise, TWISE, at mountainsideschools.org. That's Mountainside Schools, all one word, .org.
And Jen, I know our listeners hopefully know how to reach out to us, but just in case they don't and they're just tuning in for the first time.
We are Take a Cue podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom, this was a lot of fun. It was fun to have both of you guys on the pod together. And to sort of pick your brains, because like I mentioned before we started, this is something that I maybe have a little bit of experience about knowing, but I really appreciate getting to learn more about your experiences and some ideas that you have about small districts.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm having that moment like, yay, small districts, go, rah, rah. I'm feeling that vibe right now,
Small districts, big pride. I think that's the name of the
I like it.
Show.
It's nice to be heard, So yeah. This is great. Yeah. But so yeah, thanks for running with it, Erik. This is cool.
Yeah, and thank you very much for having me, guys. It's as I said, I'm a big fan, and I'll be listening to this one and all the other ones too. I love you guys.
Nice. So anyway, friends, if you're listening and you really like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast app. Make sure you tell other people about us. We love to find new listeners who haven't, gotten to find out that Take a Cue exists, and then they love it.
Yeah. And if you have any episodes in mind for us for the future, please let us know. We're always interested in hearing what you want us to talk about. Yeah.
Well, Jen and Tom, I think it's about time to wrap this up. And to all of our listeners, don't forget, get out there, make great music with either lots of kids or just a few kids. It doesn't matter, because they need music.